Feel more, speak less, the secret to real growth. Have you ever noticed that the people who talk the most about change often change the least? The ones who keep announcing, I'm working on myself, I'm evolving, I'm doing the inner work. But months later, they're stuck in the same patterns, same pain, same stories. You see, real growth doesn't happen in the noise of your words. It happens in the quiet of your feelings. The secret isn't about expressing more. It's about feeling deeper. We live in a world that glorifies words. We're told to express ourselves, to say what we feel, to talk it out. And while there's truth in that, somewhere along the way, we confuse talking about growth with actually growing. Real growth doesn't start when you speak about change. It begins the moment you stop speaking and finally allow yourself to feel what's really happening inside you. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full of truth. It's uncomfortable, yes, but that discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. You can't talk your way through pain. You can't describe your way into peace. You have to feel your way there. When you stop talking, something magical happens. You start hearing the quiet voices within you, the ones you've ignored for years, the ones that tell you what you truly want, what you truly fear, what you've been pretending not to care about. Words can often keep you safe, but they also keep you stuck. They give you the illusion of progress while you're still standing in the same emotional spot. It's easy to say, I'm working on myself, or I'm over that person, but when the room goes quiet and you feel that ache in your chest, you realize there's still work to be done. That's not failure, that's honesty. And honesty is where real evolution begins. Silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It strips away the noise, the stories, and the justifications. It forces you to meet yourself. It makes you confront the raw, unfiltered emotions you've been running from. Maybe it's guilt, maybe it's regrets, maybe it's love that never got the chance to be spoken. Whatever it is, when you stop filling the silence with explanations, you start allowing healing to take place. Because growth doesn't happen through resistance, it happens through surrender. When you sit quietly with your emotions, they stop feeling like enemies and start becoming your teachers. The truth is, words often make us feel in control, while silence reminds us how vulnerable we are. But that vulnerability is exactly what helps us evolve. It humbles us, it softens us, it connects us to something real. You start realizing that the moments that broke you didn't destroy you, they were simply showing you where you needed to grow. And that realization doesn't come through talking, it comes through feeling. When you stop trying to explain your pain and start allowing yourself to experience it, that's when transformation begins. Growth doesn't whisper, it speaks in silence. And if you listen closely, you'll hear your next chapter waiting for you in that quiet space between words. Most people think they understand their emotions because they can name them: sadness, anger, loneliness, fear. But labeling is not the same as feeling. We've been trained to stay in our heads, to analyze what went wrong, to rationalize why we feel what we feel. But analysis keeps you safe. It keeps you distant. Feeling, on the other hand, brings you face to face with yourself. It's raw, it's messy, and it's the one thing most of us secretly avoid. Because to truly feel means to surrender control. It means to let your heart ache without rushing to fix it, to let your tears fall without needing to justify them. Real growth begins the moment you stop trying to understand your emotions and start letting them move through you. You can't think your way through pain. You can only feel your way through it. When you allow yourself to feel sadness without running away, it transforms into clarity. When you let yourself feel anger without projecting it, it turns into power. When you fully feel fear, it turns into courage. Every emotion you bury stays alive inside you, shaping your choices, your relationships, your dreams. But the moment you feel it, truly and completely, it loses its grip. You become lighter, freer, more honest. You stop pretending to be okay and actually start healing. Because healing is never about saying, I'm fine. It's about whispering, this hurts, and giving yourself permission to feel it until it doesn't anymore. We spend so much of our lives trying to control our emotions, thinking that's what strength looks like. But strength isn't in control, it's in connection. You can't evolve by numbing your pain, you evolve by embracing it. You evolve by standing in the storm of your emotions and realizing you won't be destroyed by them. Feeling deeply is not a weakness. It's emotional courage. It means you're awake, alive, and human. And here's the paradox: when you stop fighting your emotions, they stop controlling you. When you stop judging how you feel, you begin to understand who you are. That's the missing link most people overlook. Growth isn't about knowing why you feel, it's about allowing yourself to feel anyway. Every time you sit with your emotions instead of escaping them, you evolve. Because the path to real growth is not paved with words. It's paved with tears, silence, and the courage to feel it all. Talking is easy. It makes us feel safe, seen, even powerful. But most of the time, our words are armor, a way to protect ourselves from what we don't want to face. We talk about our pain so we don't have to feel it. We talk about healing so we don't have to do it. We talk about changing so we can keep avoiding the silence that change requires. The truth is, our words often build a wall between us and our emotions. They sound deep, they sound wise, but sometimes they're just noise. Real growth doesn't happen in the noise. It happens in the quiet moments when you stop speaking, stop performing, and finally allow the truth to rise inside you. When you stop using words as a shield, you come face to face with the part of yourself that you've been hiding, the pain you avoided, the memories you've buried, the disappointment you've tried to outtalk. All of it starts to surface. And that's where the real work begins. Because feeling is not easy. It's uncomfortable, unpredictable, and it breaks open the parts of you that words can't reach. But that's also what makes it powerful. When you stop explaining your emotions and start experiencing them, you transform. You begin to see that your feelings aren't enemies, they're messengers. They're showing you where you still need to grow, where you've been pretending, where you've been settling for less than what your soul deserves. Most people spend years trying to protect themselves from pain, not realizing that pain is what teaches you who you are. Talking gives you control. Feeling gives you freedom. The moment you stop talking about being strong and actually sit with your weakness, something inside you shifts. You stop needing to look perfect. You stop chasing validation. You realize that vulnerability is not a sign of defeat, it's a sign of depth. The less you speak about your power, the more you begin to embody it. So yes, words can inspire, they can connect, but they can also distract. If you truly want to evolve, let your silence do the heavy lifting. Sit with what hurts, feel it fully, let it shake you, soften you, shape you, because every word you don't say gives your heart a chance to heal in ways that talking never could. And when you rise again, quieter, stronger, more grounded, your very presence will speak louder than any words ever could. It's easy to look intelligent when you can explain your feelings, but true intelligence isn't found in your words. It's found in your ability to feel and understand those feelings deeply, real. Intelligence is emotional awareness. It's not about how much you know, it's about how well you know yourself. You can memorize books, quote philosophers, or analyze every situation logically, but if you can't recognize what's happening inside your heart in a moment of chaos, you're missing the point of growth. Emotional awareness is the ability to sit with yourself when your emotions feel too heavy to handle. It's choosing to breathe instead of react. It's knowing that feeling pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. When you start to feel more instead of speak more, your awareness expands. You begin to see what triggers you, what drains you, and what truly fulfills you. You stop running from your emotions and start learning from them. You realize that every feeling, even the uncomfortable ones, carries a message. Anger might be telling you where your boundaries have been crossed. Sadness might be asking you to let go. Fear might be showing you where you're meant to grow. The moment you start listening to these emotional signals instead of dismissing them, you become wiser, calmer, and more in control of your life. Not because you suppress your emotions, but because you understand them. We've been taught that intelligence is about control. Control your reactions, control your thoughts, control your image. But emotional awareness is about surrender. It's about trusting yourself enough to feel without losing balance. When you master your emotions, you don't avoid pain, you navigate through it with grace. You start responding instead of reacting. You start listening instead of defending. You start choosing compassion over judgment. That's when your relationships begin to change, your peace deepens, and your confidence becomes effortless. The most evolved people are not the loudest ones in the room. They're the ones who understand what their silence means. They're aware of their inner storms, but don't let those storms define them. They don't speak to impress. They connect to express. And that's emotional intelligence, not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it. It's the quiet power of someone who doesn't need to talk to prove their growth because their presence already does. When you feel more, you stop pretending to be strong. You simply become strong. Listening is one of the most underrated forms of growth. We live in a world where everyone wants to be heard, but few want to listen. Everyone's talking, posting, preaching, but the real evolution happens when you stop trying to speak over the noise and start hearing what the silence is trying to tell you. Listening is an act of humility. It's saying, maybe I don't have all the answers yet. Maybe there's something I'm supposed to learn here. And that small shift in attitude opens the door to massive growth. Because when you listen, truly listen, you start seeing beyond words, beyond appearances, beyond assumptions. You start connecting to truth. Listening is not just about other people. It's about listening to yourself, that quiet voice that you often ignore because it's inconvenient. The one that says this isn't right for you, or you deserve more than this, or you're not being honest with yourself. Most of us silence that inner voice with distractions. We drown it in noise, in busyness, in talking about everything except what really matters. But the truth is, your inner voice never lies. It's your compass. It guides you to peace, alignment, and purpose. The more you listen to it, the less you need external validation. You stop chasing approval because you start trusting your intuition. And when it comes to others, listening becomes a mirror of growth. When you listen to understand, not to respond, you start developing empathy. You stop reacting defensively. You begin to see the world through another person's lens. That's where connection deepens. Growth isn't about proving you're right. It's about being open enough to understand that. Everyone is fighting their own unseen battles. When you learn to listen, you realize that compassion is more powerful than judgment, and silence is more healing than arguments. Listening expands your perspective. It helps you evolve from reacting emotionally to responding consciously. You begin to hear life itself, the lessons in your heartbreaks, the messages in your failures, the wisdom hidden in your quiet moments. Every time you choose to listen instead of talk, you create space for transformation. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. When you start listening to yourself, to others, to the world, you begin to hear the rhythm of growth itself. And in that rhythm, you'll find a version of you that's wiser, calmer, and finally at peace. We've been taught to equate movement with progress, to believe that if we're not constantly doing, chasing, or speaking, we're falling behind. But the truth is, stillness is not weakness, it's wisdom in motion. Stillness is where clarity begins to form, where your scattered thoughts gather into focus, and where your heart finally catches up with your mind. When you allow yourself to be still, you stop reacting and start observing. You start to see things, patterns, people, emotions, exactly as they are, not as you wish them to be. That awareness is the foundation of real growth, because growth isn't always loud or visible. Sometimes it's the quiet realignment of your inner world. Stillness doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing what matters with intention. It's the pause before the next step, the deep breath before the next decision. It's in that space that your intuition speaks, your strength rebuilds, and your purpose becomes clearer. When you stop talking and let yourself simply be, your energy shifts. You realize that the more still you become, the more powerful your actions become when you finally move. Because movement without clarity is chaos, but movement after stillness, that's transformation. We often fill our lives with noise because silence scares us. We confuse stillness with stagnation, but they're not the same. Stagnation is the absence of growth. Stillness is the preparation for it. When you stop and reflect, you create space for insight, healing, and renewal. It's in those moments of quiet that you reconnect with who you truly are, not the version the world expects, but the one your soul has been whispering about all along. You start to recognize what truly matters, what drains your energy, and what deserves your focus. The most powerful people aren't the loudest, they're the ones who have mastered stillness. They move with purpose, they speak with clarity, and they act from peace. Stillness gives you emotional control, mental strength, and spiritual grounding. It reminds you that evolution isn't about rushing, it's about realignment. Every time you pause, breathe, and feel before you act, you evolve. Because the secret to lasting growth isn't in constant motion, it's in knowing when to stop, when to listen, and when to let stillness do its quiet, transformative work within you. Growth doesn't come from how much you talk about change, it comes from how deeply you feel it. When you stop filling your silence with words and start allowing your emotions to flow freely, you begin to evolve from within. You realize that silence isn't a void, it's a mirror. It shows you everything you've been avoiding, your fears, your wounds, your desires. And when you finally face those reflections with honesty instead of avoidance, you start growing in ways no book, speech, or advice could ever teach you. Real transformation is quiet, slow, and deeply personal. It happens when no one's watching, when the only voice you're listening to is the one inside you. Feeling more and speaking less allows you to connect with the essence of life. You begin to notice how your emotions guide you, how silence teaches you, and how stillness heals you. The noise of the world begins to fade, and in its place comes a calm clarity, a sense of knowing that doesn't need to be proven through words. That's the power of emotional awareness. It transforms chaos into peace and turns vulnerability into strength. You don't need to announce your evolution to anyone. Your energy, your presence, and your peace will speak louder than words ever could. Growth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been beneath all the noise. It's about removing the layers of self-doubt, fear, and pretense that talking often hides. When you learn to feel more and speak less, you stop living for validation and start living in alignment. You stop seeking answers outside yourself and start trusting the wisdom that's been waiting quietly within you all along. Stillness becomes your power, silence your strength, and presence your greatest teacher. So, if you truly want to evolve, stop talking about how far you'll go. Sit with your emotions, feel the things that scare you, listen to your silence. Let your stillness do the work that words cannot. Because growth isn't about saying I've changed, it's about waking up one day, looking at your life and realizing you already have. That's the secret. Feel more, speak less, and you'll discover that the real transformation was never in what you said, but in what you allowed yourself to feel. Thank you and goodbye. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope these words reminded you of the power that comes from silence, the strength that lives in your emotions, and the growth that happens when you stop talking and start feeling. Remember, your emotions are not your enemies. They're your guides. So take a breath, be still, and trust your inner voice. That's where your evolution begins. If this message touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt talks that help you grow emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Until next time, stay grounded, stay honest with yourself, and always remember the quiet moments are where your soul speaks the loudest. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.